Okay, so going back to Google Doc and me just kind of riffing on Loom, um, and I wanted to do this video just because I've got kind of more people in the DMs now. Like, hey, where would you start? Where would you do this? Whatever, whatever. This is kind of the guide that I wish I had when I was starting out, and it's really now like a blueprint of 5 years, how you can effectively become a millionaire in the lowest risk way possible. And I'm going to touch on that, right? There's ways you can shortcut these steps. There's ways you can skip steps, but this is kind of like the lowest risk possible. That if you start today, within 5 years, you can become a millionaire. Now, other thing I've got here is author notes. These timelines aren't fixed, right? This can happen quicker for some people, might take other people longer, might never happen for some people, right? There's no guarantees in life. It really depends on how hard you work, who you listen to, your natural talent, your IQ, a lot of luck, all those different things, right? So, but again, this is what I would have hoped to have had when I started, which I didn't necessarily. The first thing is that you want to do is figure out what your goal is, right? Seems so obvious in hindsight, but you need to have some idea of where you're going towards. Now, this can change. Something that a mistake I made when I was starting out is I would very rarely set concrete goals because I had this strange irrational fear of like, one, what if I don't hit the goal, which is kind of stupid. Two, what if it's the wrong goal? Now, both of these are silly irrational fears. One, what if I don't hit the goal? Okay, so what? I figure out why. Maybe the goal was set poorly. Maybe I didn't work hard enough. Maybe I didn't allocate my resources. Maybe I didn't think about this specific problem. Whatever, whatever. Okay, I reset. I start for another goal, and I go and try and hit that. Second point is it's the wrong goal. Again, you're going to find out that it's the wrong goal if you're working towards the goal and you're remaining objective and you're calculating and you're figuring out, okay, this is happening, that's happening, I'm getting feedback, I'm getting this data, my life is getting worse. Maybe this is the wrong goal, or there's something about this goal that needs to be tweaked. Both things you don't need to fear, right? Because with feedback, you're able to adjust. So this is super important for me. I never wrote it down, but I always had the vague goal in my head of when I got into online business. I just wanted to make enough money so I didn't have to work a regular job, didn't have to answer to a boss, and then I could go, travel around the world and do all that kind of stuff. Now, I hit that a long time ago, so obviously as time goes on and as your belief systems expand and as you hit goals, you need to adjust and set different goals and all of that. But that's kind of the main thing. You want to figure out what your goal is. The next step is you want to do an objective analysis of natural proclivities, skill sets, network, unfair advantages, strengths, weaknesses. What does this mean? It means all of your experience, whether you're 10 years old, you're 18, you're 28, you're 38, you're going to have different bits of experience. Potentially you've worked jobs before. Maybe you've studied before. Maybe you've tried other business models before. Maybe you used to play sport. Maybe you used to play video games. There's always going to be something in your makeup that makes it easy for you to do a certain type of work and learn a certain type of skill, and probably more difficult and against your nature to do another specific type of thing. The other thing that you need to be mindful of is unfair advantages, right? So I'll give you a good example. I've got a friend now who wants to get into online business. He's done brick and mortar business his whole life. And I'm giving him an e-commerce blueprint, right? Now, his biggest unfair advantage and probably highest chance of success in online business is if he does e-commerce, purely because he has me as in his network, right? Which means he gets access to better information, he gets access to a blueprint. So his chances of making it are way higher in that business model because of that unfair advantage than any other business model. So it doesn't necessarily matter so much for him because he's so far behind in terms of skill set. It doesn't matter if he has a natural proclivity to this kind of work or that kind of work, because what he's done thus far is so far away from online business that he's basically starting from scratch. He has the most chance of making it if he just listens to me and does my business model. So that would be like an unfair advantage, a network, something like that, where you would go towards a business model, especially if it's just a means to an end, if it's just a way for you to achieve your goal, that maybe it doesn't fit so much in your own personal makeup. The other thing I want to add to this is you're never you're always rolling into the next thing. And typically what happens in business is you might start in a particular business model or a different or a business, and you gain some status and authority in that particular business, but you're not necessarily the best, but it allows you to then roll it into the next opportunity. So two good examples off the top of my head, or a few, is is Jordan Welch. So he was in e-commerce. He was decent. He made money. I think he might have sold a brand. I can't remember, but he wasn't top tier at e-commerce, right? I don't think he ever built something to 8 figures a year, but he made decent money, right? But what he was really uniquely good at was content. But if he had never gone into e-commerce, he would never have built the status, the authority, the skill set to then roll it into content. Same kind of thing happened with Seb Georgiou. There's a bunch of other guys, right? And that's just one example of rolling it into a different business model. But that's why sometimes you don't necessarily need to go into a particular, the choice of the business model is not so important, is what I'm trying to say, right? As long as it somewhat matches, that's kind of what you're doing this objective analysis, right? Now, once this is done, you want to pick a scalable business model. The reason why I say scalable is because we're trying to hit millionaire status in 5 years, which means you're going to need a business model that's scalable. What I mean by scalable, physical product e-commerce, once you've found product market fit, typically you have a manufacturing partner who can manufacture a product at scale where the marginal cost to create another product, once the mold is set or once the formulation has been created, if it's a supplement, the marginal cost to create another product is very, very small. And the time it takes to produce it is often very, very small because of the machinery and all those things. Therefore, it's very, very easy to scale, right? Same thing with software. Once you've created the bit of software, it's very, very easy to scale that en masse. Similar with affiliate marketing. If I'm selling someone else's product, like in lead generation, I'm sending someone leads, as long as they have the capacity to take, an unlimited amount of leads, I can continue to just scale that up with very, very little effort, right? If something's working, I can just increase ad spend, right? Very similar with information or publishing, right? You're selling, you're basically selling hot air, but you might be selling a PDF, you might be selling a high-ticket course, you might be selling some sort of biz op thing. I'm not sure, right? But as long as the back end is scalable in the sense of it's reasonably easy to fulfill on these things, you can literally just spend more on ads or spend more on content or increase the marketing machine. And that's what I mean by scalable business model. Because what's happened is I've got a lot of friends in this space, and typically what can happen is if you go into a service-based business, it's easier at the start because you're just trading your time for money. Whereas a lot of these businesses, they require an upfront investment, which scares a lot of people away. But the general rule has been, after around 4 years in this online marketing game, a lot of my richest friends now are the ones who went into these business models because they're scalable. They didn't have as much success, say, in the first 6 months as the guys who went into the service business, but that you've got to pick your poison, right? And I always advocate for a scalable business model. The only caveat here is if you go down the route of boutique agency solving a highly specialized problem with the view of then using that time and cash to then start one of these. A very good example of this is I have a friend, Zarek, who runs a highly specific marketing agency. It's a long form direct response marketing agency. They do advertorials, they do email funnels. He's very, very highly specialized at that skill. It's a huge in-demand skill for brands because it gives them a lot of ROI on their email list. And he also writes funnels for cold traffic, which not many people can do. And obviously that grows the business as well. And because of this, because he's solving this very specific problem, it means that all his team members can be trained on that problem. It's very easy to build systems out. It's very easy to build processes because the skill or the service that he's offering is high ROI for brands and business owners, or the perceived value is very high. It means he can charge a lot, which means he can spend money to hire really good people to do a good job in fulfilling the service. And then it creates this flywheel, and he doesn't necessarily have to be involved in the day-to-day of the business because it's such high margins. He can just hire out those key management positions, which means he's out, but he has this beautiful vehicle that's spitting out cash to him. He can then take that cash and all the time he has, and now he's building his brand. And I'm pretty sure his brand's doing really well now. That's going to scale up. That's kind of going to be his big play, right? So that's the only caveat there. The next thing you want to do is, once you have this in mind, you want to start to stack some cash and build a skill. As I said, these business models, they're a little bit pay to play, which means you have to have some starting capital, right? Um, Honestly, if you don't have that, you're better off trying to figure a way out. Figure a way to get that. Getting a high-paying job is a good example. But you want to build a skill. Now, what do I mean by build a skill? This has been thrown around, and it's funny because I had someone in my DMs recently say, "Hey, I'm a long form direct response copywriter. I've been working on these sales letters. I want a job." Realistically, I'm never going to hire that person. Why? Because it's one skill in isolation. We're moving towards a day and age now where learner's skill actually means you need to stack 3 or 4 skills. So, what's a good example? For the new e-commerce brand that we've launched, we have a video editor, but that person doesn't just edit videos, meaning we don't just send Loom, say, "Hey, do this scene, do that scene." He can also write copy, and he's also very good with scene selection. So that's 3 skills stacked in one. He all of a sudden becomes a very valuable asset to the company, and we can just plug him in and know he'll do a good job. Another really good example is a media buyer I've hired recently. He can buy traffic, he can help on the funnel and the CRO side, and he can create variations on creatives, right? So again, that's 3 skills stacked in one. He's not just pushing button in the ads manager. He's saying, "Hey, we need these creatives. Hey, let's do these split tests. Hey, let's test these variations on the creative side," right? So by build a skill, I actually mean stack 3 to 4 different skills, because then that makes you valuable to a business owner. We do not live in a day and age anymore where you can just have one single skill, because what will happen is you get plugged into a machine, you won't get paid much, and you won't get that much of an oversight of the business model. The business owner is probably not going to let you in and say, "Hey, here's how the business actually works." Whereas if you stack these skills and you can create a lot of value for the business owner, he's going to be more willing to go, "Hey, come, here's how our P&L works. Here's how much money we're making. Here's how the business model actually works," which is what you want, because this is the next part, the apprenticeship. With the stack of skills that you have, you want to then go and get your apprenticeship. Now, this is what I did. I went and had a normal corporate job. I learned Facebook ads. I did my own sort of drop shipping business. I then went and worked for Davey Fogarty, where I was able to practice my skills in content creation, media buying, CRO, and he was also fortunate, or I was fortunate enough where he was feeling generous or lucky or whatever, where he showed me a lot of the other parts of the business that I didn't quite understand, to get a full apprenticeship and understanding of just how that business model worked, the unfair advantages, which I was then able to take and do on my own, right? Now, another business partner and friend has done something very similar. He worked for someone that had a $600 million exit on his Amazon brands. He launched 3 or 4 new Amazon brands. My business partner was working directly on the marketing with those Amazon brands. He got a full 8-month apprenticeship of growing one of them from 0 to 5 million a month in barely any time at all. And he's then taken that skill set and that capital and done it for himself now. And he's well on that path, right? So it's really important, right? Now you can skip these steps, which is what I'll get to later in the video, but this is the risk-free way, right? So in this apprenticeship, you're getting paid. If you structure it on performance, you can actually get paid quite a bit, especially if you're in the marketing machine or you're selling or you're doing something like that. And you're then taking that apprenticeship. And typically the apprenticeship, if you've done a good job for the business owner and you've been transparent and upfront and say, "Hey, I want to do this for 12, 18, 24 months, and then I want to go out and do my own thing," they're typically going to be very supportive of you, especially if you've made them a lot of money, right? So you now have that business owner's network. And if they're a successful business owner, you now have access to all those people, all that information, which is, again, the exact same thing that happened to me. It's what happened to my business partner as well. Once you've done that apprenticeship, and it might be 6 months, it might be 12 months, 18, 24 months, you're now ready to go out on your own. Now, you may have already done this on the side, right? This is what I did. I had mine on the side. Maybe you haven't, but you're now ready to go and launch your scalable business. And the important parts here is you want a large TAM, strong margins, and it can, needs to be able to be scaled. And then once you've launched this business, right, you want to be doing this. You want to network with other people in the same business model at a similar level. Now, if you've done this properly, you should have a network there. If you haven't and you've been siloed, it's very easy to build a network quite quickly. The first thing you want to do is start documenting your journey on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, any sort of social media where you're going to get a lot of eyeballs, but the most important thing is relevant eyeballs, right? So I would probably go more towards YouTube or even Twitter versus say Instagram, because Instagram you're going to get a lot of bottom feeders. The next thing you want to do is follow and interact with people on Twitter. And the third thing is, this is a little hack. A lot of people don't like posting a lot or exposing a lot about their business because it gives away alpha, and I understand that. But what you can do is value post on Twitter to get status and authority until you get to around 5,000 followers. And then you can tone it down. You don't have to give any alpha away about your business anymore. I actually don't really. I share principles-based things on YouTube and Twitter, but I'll never give real source away that I'm using in my businesses because it would just be foolish of me to do so, unless you work for me, obviously. Now, once you've got that status and authority and you've got the 5,000 followers, it's very easy to DM random people. It's very easy to respond. You're going to get people to respond back to you. And now you have access to information, access to a network. Then we're on to actually starting the business. Now, this was kind of my roadmap somewhat, so I'll talk through it. This is just kind of like a basic timeline, but the first 6 months, the business should really be recycling cash. If you've done all of this properly, you now have most of the skills needed for the business, which means you shouldn't be hemorrhaging money. If you've picked something and it's now hemorrhaging, you've done something wrong, right? Something's gone amiss here, but it should be recycling cash, which means you should at least be making your money back. By month 6 or 2, the business should be making some profit, right? 5K a month profit, 15K a month profit. It may not seem like much, and maybe some of your agency friends are beating you and you're thinking, man, maybe I should switch business models. They don't ever lose money on the ads manager. Maybe I should start grinding for retainers, whatever. No, stay in your scalable business model, because it should be spitting off some profit, but maybe it's not going absolutely parabolic. Month 12 to 18, the business should be at around 15 to 50K a month, which is when you get your first taste of like, wow, this is working. I'm making serious money now. And then month 18 plus, you should be consistently at 50K profit a month plus. And really the upside is exponential. You'll have people in these industries who've sold companies for 7 figures, 8 figures, 9 figures, $1 billion. You'll have people in these industries who are making, 8 figures profit a year, multiple 8 figures profit a year. The upside really is exponential because we're picking scalable business models with a large TAM. Now, to put that into perspective of my own journey, as I said, I've been 4 years. Month 0 to 6 was literally that for me. I was recycling cash, maybe $1,000 profit here, $1,000 loss there, but I wasn't hemorrhaging money. It was enough to say, okay, it's working. This happened right up until month 8. Month 8 was when we had the first, I'd say, breakthrough month where we hit like a 40K profit month, right? And that kind of continued until month 12, right? So we're in that 5 to 15K, maybe a little bit more, 5 to 40K profit a month mark, but the business was making money. We had our first breakthrough. We were able to hire some team members and we're like, okay, this is really working now. Then at about month 13 was when we had another breakthrough again. And I think we hit like an 80 or 90K or maybe 100K profit month. And we sort of bounced up and down, anywhere from say 30K profit to like 80K profit right up until about month 18. And then for us, month 19, we had our first, 6-figure profit month. I think around month 20, 21, we had our first multi-6-figure profit month. And then I think it was right in year 2. So maybe month 24 or 25, we managed to break through and have $1 million, and this is in Australian dollars, not US dollars, profit month. Took us a full 12 months to then have another $1 million profit month, and then another 4 months after that to have back-to-back $1 million profit months. So you can see in the journey, things go up, things go down, but the trend for the whole has been up. And if you track the monthly profit on a chart, you would see the trend, in the micro, it's up and down, but if you zoom out, the trend is consistent up, and I expect it to stay, that way for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And in amongst that, I, sold a business as well, right? So that's kind of a timeline you can expect. Now, I literally followed this, right? I inadvertently followed this. I had the goal. I wanted to quit my job and replace my income. I didn't do the objective analysis, but I knew that I'm more introverted. I prefer working kind of alone in front of the laptop. I was less, put cold outreach and cold calling, although I'd done that. And honestly, if I had to do it again, I would have been decent at it. it probably wasn't my natural thing that I liked doing. It drained energy from me. It didn't give me energy, right? Whereas being creative in front of the laptop gave me energy. So e-commerce was a natural fit. I had some cash from my job that I'd saved up, about $20,000. And I used that to build the skill, which was actually building the business, but I focused on the front end of the business, the marketing, while my partner focused on ops. I used that skill and I went and I cold DM'd the founder, and I can actually do a different video on how you can actually get jobs directly with founders, if that would be helpful for people, because I've obviously gotten a lot of those now, and I actually did that to get my apprenticeship. So I was getting paid by, basically the best in the business. And then I launched my scalable business. And from there, I've since launched other scalable businesses, and things have kind of continued to grow. Some author notes on this. These timelines aren't fixed. As I said, I know a guy who's 18 years of age, I think, 18 or 19. If you're watching this, you'll know who I'm talking about, where he literally, I think, went through this whole thing, but it took him like 8 months. So I don't know if he figured out what his goal was. I think, online money was obviously his goal. I don't know if he did this part. He definitely did this part. He picked e-commerce. He did his apprenticeship, so he went and worked for a affiliate marketing business that did affiliate e-com, right? So they were selling other people's e-com gadgets, and he worked for them, and he got a full apprenticeship. Now, the thing with this guy is very, very sharp. So his apprenticeship was condensed into like 4 to 6 weeks, and he was also on performance. He made the company quite a bit of money, which means he made himself quite a bit of money. And then he realized, I can do all this myself. He launched his scalable business, and now he's doing, multi 6-figure profit months, and he'll probably hit his first 7-figure profit month in no time. And he's been in the game less than a year, which is, it's crazy to me, right? Because it took me a little bit longer, obviously. But as I said, these timelines aren't fixed, but typically they do go through the same stages. Some people just manage to compress those stages a lot shorter. For other people, it's going to take longer. For other people, they skip the stages, right? They just figure out what the goal is. Okay, build a business. I've got $10,000. I'm just going to start it. And you can do that too, right? It's all about, what I'm trying to paint here is, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that's a little bit riskier. And if you have a higher risk tolerance and you believe you can do it, go ahead. Don't let me stop you. I have friends who went down that path and they're very successful as well. This is kind of just the lowest risk way to still hit your goals without, risking catastrophic failure, basically. And yeah, the timelines aren't fixed. It might take people longer. For some people, I know people have been grinding and it hasn't worked out for them. That's it. There are no guarantees in life. This is extremely competitive. You're competing with sharks. It's not fun and games. It's not high school. It's not university. Study, do the test, you get this score. Like, it's cutthroat. You can lose money. It cannot work, right? So these timelines aren't fixed. Another note I want to put in here is we live in a very strange time right now where access to information is plentiful, which means you can go and get any access to information, which means barriers to entry for business is very low. That's why it's very hyper competitive, but it means you can make a lot of money very quickly, especially if you pick the right idea. The cost of living is also through the roof. So 10, 20, 30 years ago, you could work a decent job and make a decent living and save up and have nice things and live a good life. Now the world is not trending that way. You either have to have a very high paying job to afford a good quality of life, or you need to build a business. Now, unfortunately for me, I never got the university degree or the pedigree to ever get a high paying job. So for me, if I wanted to live a high quality of life, I had to build a business. That was my only choice. But we live also in a strange time with AI where what is happening is the marginal cost to create things, especially things on the content side, which for a lot of these businesses, this is how they're scaled. They're scaled through content and media and paid traffic and whatever else. The marginal cost to create more, especially on the content side, is so low now because of AI, but that doesn't impact the distribution. You're still getting the same distribution, which means there's a huge delta between what you're paying to distribute and then the value you can derive from the distribution. And this is super, super important. I don't know how much longer this window is going to be this big, because you have to understand consumers cotton on, right? And consumers realize, and then eventually algorithms change and whatever else. But right now, we're literally in the golden period for the next 5 to 10 years where AI has made businesses able to be scaled with way less people. It gives your best employees 5, 10x superpowers. It means the marginal cost to create more it's come right down, right? Which means we live in a beautiful, beautiful era to go and build an internet business online with your friends and make a shit ton of money. So I implore you, if you're sitting on the fence, please take that opportunity. Doesn't matter how young you are, doesn't matter how old you are. If you have an internet connection, you can go and do this.